Alrighty. So, welcome everybody to the first ever North Carolina Action Hour. This is our first time doing these meetings, and I'm going to give a little bit of background on why we're starting this and how it's hopefully going to help you all. So, my name is Bliss Pointer for all of you that do not know. I work here in North Carolina with Hearts for Home Care, and Melissa Allman, she's on with us today. She supports North Carolina as well, along with South Carolina and Florida. So, thanks for her being on. Lee Dobson was planning to be here today, but she had a family emergency. So sending prayers and good vibes to her, and we can get started. So I just want to start off with the agenda of the call today and what you can prepare for. So right now we're doing welcoming and opening remarks. We're going to get into 2025 in review. So what happened last year? And how it's kind of setting the stage for this year. And then 2026 legislative outlook, kind of the same thing that we're going to talk about, what you can expect for this legislative session. We're also going to do a little education on a lobbyist perspective and what you might be able to take from a lobbyist playbook to use as an advocate. Then we're going to get into what you can take away from this call and how you can use it to, start off your year strong in advocacy. And then we're going to open up for a long Q&A. So any questions that you may have, please write them down. We really want you guys to share any questions you may have. If we don't have an answer for you, we're going to take your name down. I've got my notepad and we will get back to you. So you can make them hard for me. That works for me. So we're going to get started. So, first off, again, I wanted to share just why we're starting this North Carolina Action Hour call. First off, we're going to do these quarterly. So, we're having the one in January right now. We'll have another in April. That's when session's going to start. So, that'll be a really fun call to talk about what are we're seeing right now as far as session beginning, what legislators are feeling. Then we'll do another in October and then in December. So, to kind of talk about what's happening post session and what we can look at for 2027. It's crazy to say 2027 already, but I'm excited to get started. And I really hope this call is not only an opportunity for you all to hear about the things going on in North Carolina, but also an opportunity to maybe build some camaraderie. I know a lot of us only see each other mostly in person for Advocacy Day, and while we are on Zoom, and I love in-person interactions, this is another chance for you all to catch up with each other, see where everyone's at, and just keep that connection throughout the year. So I hope you guys get some benefit from this call. So, we're going to just start out with a look at 2025. And I want to start out with what our legislative ask was going into last year. We were asking for a rate increase for Medicaid home and community-based services, which we did not obtain, sadly. As you all know, a lot happened last year. However, we had a very successful Advocacy Day. Thanks to all of you. Round of applause to all of you that attended Advocacy Day or supported from home. We had 175 attend from 56 different agencies. And that is just such a powerful vision. I know some of you may have been on a call on Wednesday that I was on where I talked about just why we do Advocacy Day. And it's really about giving legislators that vision of here's all of these people. Sometimes they're in the same color, sometimes they're not, but this wide array of people from so many different backgrounds that are all here to talk about one specific issue. And it's just such a powerful thing to see, not only for a legislator, for everyone that works in advocacy and pretty much everyone that attends. So thank you all for making that such a success. And then, of course, as much as I don't want to talk about it, what happened in the fall, we had to really kind of refocus our efforts to the rate cuts that were proposed and then implemented on October 1st. So that was a really tough time for all of us, but I have to say, you all really put effort out there and stood up. Our day of action, which I like to call a mini advocacy day, but we actually had more people attend. We had 250 advocates attend our day of action. I think it was in October, November. I can't remember. I kind of blocked that out. It was a crazy time. But thank you all for all of you that showed up to that and again supported from home, sharing your stories. It's a very positive thing, and it was kind of a win for us for advocacy. The governor did reverse the cuts, but you see in our key takeaway for 2026, it's a temporary thing. Coming into the short session we're going to have this year, we need the legislators to produce funding for the Medicaid rebase. And that's going to be our main focus. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But, the actions that we took, while we can say that was a win for us in advocacy, the fight is not over. And we still need all of you to put out the same effort and keep helping us, hopefully, to have another win. So awesome. And I'll move on to the next slide where we're going to welcome our new Hearts for Home Care leadership, Sue Chapman Moss. She is our new leader. She started at the first of the year. She could not be with us today. She is traveling to Scottsdale, but we are so happy to have her as part of our team. And she, as far as I know, will be attending our Advocacy Day this year. So all of you hopefully will get the opportunity to meet her in person. She's from Boston and she loves to tell us about how cold it is there and how we have no idea what that cold is like. And we're about to experience some of it this weekend. So I'm excited to see her again and tell her about it. But she is currently holding the VP of Managing Director at Bayada, and she's leading the enterprise contracting reimbursement strategies and the government affairs team, which we fall under. So we're excited to have her, and I hope you all get the opportunity to meet her. All right, moving into 2026. The number one thing I want to talk about is budget pressure. As we enter this year, we still do not have a state budget from the General Assembly. This is a really pressing thing for this year. We need this short session to produce a full budget, and we need that funding for the Medicaid rebase to keep cuts from happening again. We all do not want to experience what happened last fall again. So hopefully through advocacy and all of you attending Advocacy Day, I know I've said it a lot today, but we really need it this year, will be absolutely crucial in that budget conversation. And with that, it kind of meshes into point number two, the continued hostile environment. As you all know, with what happened last fall, it wasn't so much about Medicaid. We got caught in the crossfires of kind of a political argument. Not only does the House and Senate not really get along right now and they're not communicating very well, but both of them are not communicating well with the governor's office either. And that's not creating an environment that's going to produce success for the state of North Carolina. So going in there, going to the General Assembly, meeting with your legislators, having those important conversations about how decisions are affecting North Carolinians in your neighborhoods and in your counties is so important because that's going to help them understand that while there's some animosity between everyone, we still need to have those productive conversations and get some things done this year. I have a strong feeling that 2026 is going to be a really powerful year, especially for advocacy. So I am excited to continue giving you guys updates on everything that's going on. All right, so we're going to move into a little bit of the educational point of these calls that I wanted to talk to you guys all about. And today our focus is on how are lobbyists preparing and what can you as an advocate take from their playbook into your ways of preparing for this year's session and all of your advocacy efforts that are coming up. Now, obviously, you guys are not lobbyists. We're not asking you to be lobbyists. But there's some things that they do that I think a lot of us could use to help you feel more prepared. It's all about being confident, right? So one of these things we've already done. We took a look back at last session. We talked about what happened in 2025. A lot of lobbyists and people that work in government affairs spend the first part of the year before session begins talking about all the efforts that they had, success, failures, what could we do better. That's something that we've already done in this call, but if you guys want to look back at your advocacy year, what did you participate in last year? How did you work with other teams on Advocacy Day? Would you want to be a team leader this year if you weren't last year? This is an opportunity for you to kind of reflect. And then identify champions. Now, we're not asking you guys to go around the state and identify all these champions that we've already done that. Lobbyists are doing that right now. But something you can do is look at your constituent legislator. Are they a champion? Are they someone that maybe they're on the health committee? Maybe they just have stood up a lot for Medicaid in the past couple of months. Or are they someone who hasn't been very vocal about it, seem to not know a lot about it, or be too interested? This is the time where meeting with your constituent legislator in district is so crucial to create that understanding of what we all care about and what we need them to do this session. Even if they're not on some of these committees, or maybe they're not a big decision maker in the General Assembly, those conversations are still very impactful. And that goes into my next point, which is having pre-session conversations. And it's not just about setting up a meeting. It's, you could call your legislator's office, set up a meeting, have coffee with them, have an hour-long sit down if you wanted to. That's always important. Please feel free to do that if you would like. But another option is you could just know your story, taking time to practice sharing the information, sharing your background. So if you happen to go to your local coffee shop and your legislator's standing there getting coffee, you could say, hey, can I have 5 minutes of your time to share my story really quick? And that's still so impactful. And that's going to create that relationship to where when you go to Advocacy Day, or if you have an in-person meeting during session, you're going to have already had that kind of awkward preliminary conversation that now things will lead quicker into what you need to talk about with them related to policy and advocacy for home care and hospice. So I really hope that's helpful. And I hope that you can take some of these tools and maybe just sit at home, practice your story, look back at your activities last year, identify your constituent legislator and where they stand as far as being a champion or possibly being a future champion. And that will help you some. And we're always there to support you guys if you have more questions on how you can, build yourself up to be a better advocate. But you all are doing great already. All right, so let's talk about a few takeaways from what we've just talked about. So, number one, now is the time to act. Even though North Carolina's in a short session this year and their session doesn't start till April, which feels a really long time away, but it's coming up really fast. First thing is share your story. If any of you attended Day of Action this past fall, I want to say it was last year, you may have seen a packet that we handed out to legislators that had like 14 different stories in it. Those were stories that some we collected right before that day of action, but some we had had throughout the year. Now is the time that if you have a story to share or know someone with a story, you can share that and we can go ahead and put it in the Rolodex and start sharing it with legislators and possibly putting in a packet like that for Advocacy Day. And the easiest way to share your story is using the Hearts for Home Care website. We have a story compendium where all you have to do is click a button and tap a little button that asks for your consent for us to share that story and record a 30-second video about your background, something powerful that you have to share. And then we can take that and use it on social media. If you are interested in more advocacy, we can put that out to news outlets and get maybe an op-ed. It's something that's so awesome, and legislators have been so responsive to those stories and how impactful it is to their conversations behind closed doors with other legislators, and they'll show your story too. The other thing we've talked about is interacting with your legislators in district, having that personal relationship, so important. I won't keep talking about it because you all already know about it. And then, of course, mark your calendars for upcoming events during session. The event I have for you is Advocacy Day. It is going to be on May 13th this year. I really hope you guys can attend. Mark your calendars now. Of course, you will see many emails from me about registration and information you need. And as you know, we will have another call like this in April that will not serve as a replacement for the prep call that we have before Advocacy Day, but it'll be another opportunity for us to talk about it and any questions you may have. The second point that I want you guys to take away is study the ask. As we progress throughout the year and we talk about different things, of course, for Advocacy Day or beforehand, you'll receive a fact sheet that has our ask. But, we send emails throughout that time beforehand that are talking about what we ask the legislators to do. What are our current asks? And you have the opportunity to say, I want to research a little bit more about this because what if I see my legislator out in public and I want to have a conversation with him and I need to know the ask. This is your time to prepare and fully put that together and maybe have your own little fact sheet ready to go to share with them. And of course, below is my email along with Lee Dobson's email. We're always here to support you guys in these efforts and any questions you have about what our ask is. Right now, I will say we're currently looking at just maintaining. After everything that took place last year, we want to see a budget come through. We want to see funding for Medicaid. That is our main focus to keep you guys from facing another cut. So, as we progress through the session and after, we may share more information about what we're asking legislators to do. And if you want to study up on it, good for you. And if you need our help, you just let us know. And now it's time for my favorite part of the session, the Q&A. You're welcome to put your questions in the chat. You're also welcome to hop off of mute and share your question. So I open the floor to you guys. What do you want us to answer? I know somebody's got a question.
So she's the one, Bliss Pointer's the one who sort of coordinates this group.
Okay.
But they had a lot to do with responding to a Medicaid cut or reimbursement rates.
Bill, you want to start? I think James,
But
can you go on mute real quick?
sorry, I thought I was muted. I apologize.
That's okay. No worries. Hey, I do it all the time. Bill, I think you have your hand raised if you would like to go.
Yeah, it was. I guess I had a couple questions. Last year
Yeah.
was our first advocacy day there in North Carolina, and um, in the feedback we got from legislators was we came too late to ask.
Hmm.
So I just want to make sure. I know you were saying this is going to be in May, and I understand this is a short session, and they're just trying to bridge the gap to get a budget together. But I just want to make sure too that this is going to be the right timing, because again, I mean, Democrats and Republicans all said that to us, and I know some other groups too, that we were too late to. They're like, we've already had discussions. You're late to the party. So that was one of them. The other thing I would just suggest too, because I do this throughout many other states as well, is I think it would be good too, because one of the things I heard some grumbling about was when we did have the meeting for advocacy in the morning, there was like no coffee or anything like that. And
Hmm.
so some people were like, really? There's no coffee here? So, I just think some things like that would make the turnout not only even better, but a little bit more happier when they go talk to the legislators if they have their caffeine. So
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And I will tell you, the place we were at last time, we were not allowed to bring food and drink into, but hopefully this year we're not going to be in the same place for all those that attend, just FYI. So hopefully this new location will allow us to bring in some coffee because I'm right there with you. And also, based on what you said on the first part, that's why we're kind of staying on the lane that everyone else is in just we need a budget. We want to fund Medicaid to not face another cut. That's not something that the legislators will be too surprised about. It's not like we're going in for a rate increase after, just coming off of a session where they were going to cut it. So I think that's the reason that we're taking that route at the moment. But of course, we continue looking at the atmosphere and working with our other partners throughout organizations to see what they're doing and making decisions based on that. And we'll keep you guys updated for sure.
I think we also needed to plus make it very apparent to them now is I've been in this industry for over 20 years now. And when they do make cuts like this is actually a stupid cut. This doesn't really have to do with anything. It's just a bunch of politically bickering, let's be honest. But the thing is this happened years ago in Missouri. They gave a rate increase and then they took it away. And then when they took it away, guess what happened? A lawsuit. So if they want to start the lawsuit route, go for it. But that's what's gonna happen because these parents we know are fed up and mad. I just found out about a lawsuit now in Ohio, on top of the many other state lawsuits that have access to care. And the state loses these. These are like slam dunks. So in federal court. So I think that's also needs to be our message saying, hey, we're not threatening you. We're telling you this is coming to a theater near you if you don't play
Yeah,
ball. And there's
absolutely.
no reason why the Republican legislature cannot get a thing together. I mean, they have a supermajority, so they can overrule the Democrat governor if they wanted to. So there's just really no need and reason for this bickering. And I think that's what we really need to do is explain to them that we need them to be adults and do their
Mhm.
job.
Yeah,
And
I
I have no
completely
problem
agree.
telling legislators to do a job because at the end of the day, we are the reason our tax dollars are the reason why they have a job.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. And I think another point that I didn't mention earlier that I want to mention is this is an election year and a lot of them are hyper focused on, who they're running against, trying to get through this election time. So that has a lot of effect on policy and what we see throughout this year. So of course, like I said, I'll keep you updated. We watch this all week long. Melissa and I are in this all the time. So we will definitely keep you guys up to date and just hopefully, coming this from the right angle. And I think we have a hand from Elizabeth.
Yeah, hey Bliss.
Hey.
I just wanted to come on. It might be beneficial because I live in Davie County, but I work in an office in Forsyth County, and our office services then like 8 or 9 surrounding counties. So I've got clients that are like direct constituents and things like that. So with that in mind, it may be beneficial. Like I know that I can go on the Hearts for Home Care website and look for my own legislators, but it might be beneficial for something where it's like, hey, maybe this is a county that we're really trying to like Hearts for Home Care is really trying to target, or this is a legislator that we're really trying to target. So that way, if they are within maybe one of the counties where it's like, hey, I've got a nurse that is an advocate and really wants to get involved, or hey, we're going to be celebrating a nurse out in the field and we'd love to have a legislator show up. It may be beneficial to have some kind of list for things like that of,
Mhm.
um, or hey, this is somebody that we know supports us, but we want to keep that connection strong. That way it maybe gives some of us some guidelines of, you know, what directions to head.
Yeah. I definitely agree. Is just to clarify, something like knowing who our champions are and just a Rolodex of
Yes,
who that
yes,
is, where they
yes.
are.
Hmm.
Especially for your case, Elizabeth, I know a lot on this call. You have offices in different areas that may
Hmm.
not be where you live at. It
Yeah.
is still okay for you to meet with constituent legislators of your office or
Hmm.
of an area that you serve. They still want to talk to you because you're serving their individuals. So when I
Yeah.
say you're a constituent legislator in all those
Hmm.
conversations that we just had, that spans out to the areas you work in.
Yeah.
So
Well, and
thank you for bringing that up for sure.
it's tricky because on the website, like and it
Hmm.
may be beneficial to just have an option on the website of, um, instead of just searching with your information, like maybe we can just type in a county, or a
Hmm.
zip code or something like that.
Hmm.
Um, and I know on the website as well, it shows like, if they're Republican or Democrat. And this is, as we've talked about before, it's a bipartisan issue. And so it may be beneficial for there to be like a star on the legislators of like, this person's a champion. They've already supported us, or this
Hmm.
person might need a little work or a little push.
Yeah,
Um, just some of those guidelines may help us kind of focus our attention in the right places.
absolutely. And I will say, even though not on the Hearts for Home Care website, the North Carolina legislative website, you can put in a zip code on there, find your legislator, and it actually maps out their districts so you can see exactly where they are and the different little towns they may cover. Because I know that'll get me sometimes. I'm like, is this little town gonna be on that line? But you can go there and see that, and it also lists their committees that thank you Shelby for plugging that into the chat. I was just thinking that would be helpful. You can see the committees they're on, and if there's someone who's on the health committee or either Senate or House, or there's a joint committee on Medicaid, those are individuals that are either already our champions or we're working to make our champions. But I really like the idea of a champion list, and I think that's something that I'm gonna work on and see about getting back to you guys with that information. And that's something that I really love about these calls because I love the recommendations. Any recommendations you guys have for us to make your lives easier, please share because it's so helpful to us. All right, James, I believe you have your hand raised.
Yeah, you guys are probably tired of me saying this, but I do think that it's really important because I agree we need to keep track of our champions on both parties. It is a bipartisan issue. I think it's important to make sure that our framing is appropriate to how each party looks at things. Like if you approach, for example, CAP as an entitlement, then you may find that Republicans don't want to return our calls. But if we can come to them and say this is about people taking responsibility for their own health and not becoming a burden on institutional care, that framing might fly better. So I think it'd almost be kind of cool if we could have talking points, you know, that we adjust depending on who we're talking to. Because I think I agree with you that home care is a bipartisan issue and it should resonate with both parties, but they might choose to frame it in slightly different ways.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. And I think, on Advocacy Day, we do provide the legislative bio sheets. And while it's not exactly what you were just mentioning, it is something that when you're meeting with your legislator, you can see what party they fall under, what their priorities are, where they went to college. I mean, you can see it all. So using that when you go into your meetings, and that's something that if you have an in-district meeting or you guys are going to the legislative building on your own without us to go talk to your constituent legislator, we can provide you with those sheets and talking points when you're going. And that's an opportunity that we could get a little bit more in depth on what we might say to this specific legislator rather than 150 of you are all going to different ones. And, trying to provide a specific fact sheet to each is really difficult. So anytime you guys have an in-person meeting on your own outside of group events, please let us know because we're happy to provide you with all of that information. Lynn, I believe your hand is raised. I'm sorry if I'm skipping over people that went first or second. I'm just seeing them as they pop up on my screen. So just go ahead.
You're fine. Hi, Lynn Martin. So I had one thing to say, but then the last guy, when he talked about the institutional, we have to flip the narrative. The narrative has to be the value that people with disabilities bring to the community, not the narrative of what is negative about them. Where what we have economic impact as people with disabilities. My son has economic impact. He pays taxes. He may work in a job, or if he doesn't, his caregivers do. If you even the most critical need person that may not be out in the community working, he's got caregivers that's coming in his house, and that's creating economic base for the local government. So we need to flip the narrative when we're talking about these talking points. So I urge you to do that,
Yeah.
because as a family member, I don't like to hear that, all about the negative of what my son may or may not bring. So just anyway, but the other
Absolutely.
piece, the other piece is the State Consumer Family Advisory Council has their legislative day the day before that. I just want y'all to know that. So that's on
Yes.
Tuesday. And they are actually in session meeting that day. So all the people that came from State CFAC last time will not be at your advocacy day. And that's including me because I'll have to be at the meeting.
Yes,
So,
we did hear
and
about that.
DHHS staff and everything will be there. So they always meet on the second Wednesday. So in
Mhm.
your future planning, maybe don't do it on the second Wednesday.
Yeah, we heard about that when we were picking our date, and I will say it was based on the fact that any later we would be hitting on top of other advocacy days that also,
Okay.
like you were saying, would be, kind of hindering to our efforts. Also, you don't want to wait too long into session to hold an advocacy
Right.
day because then we face an issue like I think someone else was mentioning before, where they've already kind of had conversations. It's a little too late. So you don't want to hit them on the first week of session. You don't want to hit them towards the end. So May 13th ended up falling as the best day
Yeah.
out of all the options that we had. So, it's hit or miss sometimes. I know Melissa remembers last year in South Carolina, we had it all planned out. It was great. And then legislators the night before decided they were going to finish at 12 a.m. and go home, and no one was there. And it's
Oh my
okay
goodness.
because their staff is still there. Their staff is there all year long. I used to be a staff member. I remember it was a ghost town when they weren't there. So, no matter what, the conversations you have with their legislative assistants are still helpful. I know for a lot of you, you may be rolling your eyes and saying, that's whatever you say, Bliss, but I promise you, as someone who used to be a legislative assistant, they are still immensely helpful, even if you don't get to talk to the legislator themselves.
Okay.
All right. I think we had a question about do you have programming for local advocacy, including county commissioners, school board, etc.? We do not. I will say they do not play a huge role in the issues that we combat in this on this call and this team, but it's not a problem for you to go talk to them. You can, of course, know your county commissioners, know your school board members, talk about your community, how cuts can affect them, that they need to speak to the state legislators that they are connected to from your district and encourage them to support our efforts. But we don't currently do a lot of effort or provide a lot of information related to county commissioners and school board. I believe, Bill, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, thanks, Bliss. I can't remember from last year, so excuse me if you're already doing this, but I think the thing also too we really need to hint on with this advocacy day is about if it's we all know it's already very difficult to find staff already, no matter what type of care level we're talking about. But especially for our clients who have private duty nursing, I mean, not having staff usually means they're going to be hospitalized. And
Mhm.
so when the state is sitting here and talking about costs, I always like to bring up the elephant in the room is, well, where do you think these people go then when we're not able to staff? They go to hospital. And you think that's cheap? No. I think if we could have some numbers around maybe what the actual cost is
Mhm.
for these individuals, both children and adults, I think it's really important because they always kind of focus in on what they're paying us, except they're kind of missing the forest through the trees, type deal. And I think if we could say, look, the real cost is because again, as long as we have consistency of staffing, most of these individuals don't need to go in the hospital.
Mhm.
But when that doesn't occur, then you go in the hospital. And I know the American Academy of Pediatrics has a rate of about 4,500 hours a day, but that changes. It's all different in every state. So I think if we can say how much that is,
Mhm.
and then also if there's any way even we can say typically then these clients they're there for these many days. I think that will also maybe put a little fire under them of saying
Mhm.
you're worried about money. Well, you're throwing money away by not funding this correctly.
No, you are absolutely right. And that is something that we do. I know our fact sheet last year did have the information about how much home care and just staying at home is saving money for North Carolina. And I want to go back, this kind of connected to what I wanted to jump back to about what Lynn was saying about the story and showing that, her son had value. And I think that is something that is so important with the stories we ask you guys to share. Not only are we going to have the numbers for you to talk about, hey, this is how different it is for someone to go to a nursing home compared to them staying at home with their family and being able to go to work and being able to provide income to the economy of these communities and your constituency. So putting those two together, the value and the cost savings, is something that shows legislators, hey, this is the best choice for North Carolina. This is what you should be supporting. So I definitely agree with both of you on that, and that's something that we're prioritizing for this year, and I believe has been a prioritization for years in the past and will be for years to come. So I appreciate you both sharing that. Do we have any other questions? I'm not seeing anything in the chat. Well, if that is all, I hope all of you enjoyed the call today. I hope this was helpful. If you don't have questions now, but may come up later when you're thinking about it, you'll receive this slide deck and the recording of this Zoom in an email from me coming hopefully today. I should have one for you today, but I hope this is helpful. And if you have questions later, please shoot me an email. Shoot my team an email. We would love to answer any questions you may have and don't wait until next meeting. We always want to hear from you and help you guys. So if that's it, I'm going to give you some more time on your Friday back to prepare for this winter storm that is coming our way. But thank you all so much for coming.